Chapter 6 Hammers. Hammers in Donkey Kong Arcade are collectible power-ups. With it, you swing the hammer up and down, destroying any enemies that it comes into contact with. Be careful though, as you're not invincible. Enemies that manage to touch you will still cost you your life. They last for 10 seconds and don't respawn when a level is reset. We created the prefab and the spawning code for the hammer back in Chapter 1, Part 5. Here in Chapter 6, we'll be writing the actual functionality for the hammer so that we can collect it and use it. When the hammer hits an object, we need to freeze the movement of all objects on the screen while the pop animation plays. We then resume the game when the animation is complete. So next, we will add the ability to freeze and unfreeze the game. Since this is a level control, we'll be doing this within the level factory script. As we will be nullifying all moving objects' velocities, we're going to need a place to save them so that we can reapply the values when the game unfreezes. Freezing the level is as simple as changing the game state and remembering all current velocities of each barrel. We also set the barrels and the player to kinematic while paused. This ensures gravity can't move them. Unfreezing the level is simply just reversing what we just did. Before we can move on, now is a good time to traverse through a few different scripts and add some public access functions that a hammer is going to require. Navigate to the player script and add the following reference variable. The player is also going to need a way of checking if the player is currently using a hammer. The player is also going to require a way of enabling and disabling the hammer. And last for our player, we will need to update the player's update function. We need to make sure the player's behavior is only running while the game state is set to playing. And over in the barrel script, we will also need to add a way to check if the barrel is explosive. With our freeze, unfreeze, and public access functions out of the way, our next step is to set up the pop prefab. Start by adding a new asset variable into the level factory script. Next, head on over to the editor to create and set up the object prefab. Attach an animation controller script to our new object, and add the following animation. And finally, make our pop object a prefab. With everything set up, the time is finally right for us to create our hammer script. Create a new script and name it hammer. We're going to need the good old generic library again for our script, so that we may use the list type variable once again. Next, we're going to need to add the variables our hammer will require. We have a few variables that need to be initialized at runtime, so we'll do this from within start. Most of the functionality required for the hammer is all contained within collision. You start the power up by touching the hammer, and you destroy an object by hitting it with the hammer. Here, we will add it all into the onTriggerEnter2D function. When the pop animation finishes playing, we want the game to resume playing. To achieve this, we will pass a simple function into the pop animation to be called when it finishes as a delegate. While the player has the hammer, we'll need a function to manage the hammer, rotating it and keeping the player's animations in sync with it. We need the hammer to flash when it's running low on remaining time, so we'll create the flash function to do this. All that's left to do in our script now is to add our swing and flash functions into the game loop. And now finally, we need to attach the hammer script to our hammer prefab. Make sure to place the two hammer sprites into the asset variables on the hammer script too. Congratulations, you've finished Chapter 6. If you've done everything correctly, you should now be able to save, compile, and run your project. Playtest your game and grab that hammer to start squashing those barrels and living fires.